let's talk about now whether a UX career is right for you. So we're going to cover a few things in this lesson. First of all, I'm going to talk about the different roles within UX and how you can sidestep into a UX career from your current role. Then I'm going to talk about, do you have what it takes for a career in UX? So I'm going to talk about the different attributes that make up a good UX designer. Then I'm going to cover, what does a typical day look like for a UX designer? What do we do every day in, day out? So first, let's talk about the different UX roles are available and how you can sidestep into UX. So first of all, I want to talk about a career in UX, and I want to break down some of the common myths about launching a career in UX. So myth number one, I can't be a UX designer because I don't have design or coding experience or skills. Well, guess what? Some of our best graduates have come from backgrounds such as psychiatry, anthropology, physiotherapy even. And one of our best graduates happens to be a physiotherapist. So sometimes learning UX, it's about your soft skills that make you a good UX designer. And I'll talk about those later. So if you've got a visual design background, that's great, and it's about learning some of those other methods. And if you've got a background in physiotherapy or some completely different career, you can still bring a lot of skills and attributes to the role of UX designer and learn the UX methods. So I want you to hear from Miranda, who I recruited many years ago, about her experience with coding and design.
So I actually have a background with coding and design, but when I started my career, I started 15 years ago as a web developer, doing front-end dev and basic design. After becoming a UX designer, I haven't used any of my coding or design skills. For about 10 years, I didn't touch Photoshop except to, fix screenshots of, design examples and perhaps do a little bit of zhooshing of a design. But I didn't actually need to draw on my experience with design. Since becoming a product manager or a product owner, I have needed to use some of those. But other than that, a UX designer doesn't need to have a background as, in web development or understand how code works. It does help to understand the concept of how you put together code or how a website is put together, to understand what your limitations are in terms of what you can do or what you can recommend to designers or coders to do. But you don't actually need to know how to do the nitty-gritty. You don't need to understand how to build a website. You just need to understand how generally a website is built.
So when I hear about the term UX designer, a lot of people think that's a specialist sort of role, but really UX designer is a very sort of generalist term. Here's some of the different careers that you might be if you are a UX designer. You might specialize in some of these different areas. So you might be things like an information architect. You might be a UI designer. You might be a user researcher. You might be a content writer. So there's a lot of different areas of speciality within UX design. It's good if you have a sort of deeper knowledge in one area, and we call this the T. For instance, you might be a user researcher. You might understand how to sort of design concepts and do a bit of testing, but your strength might be in designing and conducting user research. So you might have a background in psychology, anthropology, social research, market research. Those sort of roles make really good user researchers, being able to design that research and conduct it in a really sort of rigorous way. You might also have a background as a business analyst or a visual designer. You might make a really good interaction designer or UI designer. You might also have a background in front-end development, and then you also might be a good UI designer. Or you might have a background in market research, or business analysis, and again, you might become a good usability tester. So there's a number of different sort of possible paths and help you sort of define what areas of UX that you might sort of focus on. So the demand for UX roles and different roles within UX is very different in different markets and different industries. But first of all, I really wanted to bust that sort of myth that you don't need to have coding or design skills to be a UX designer. So yes, you might have to work a bit harder, but if you have what it takes, if you've got those core attributes, you'll be fine. It's what makes a good UX designer. So a lot of people kind of go, oh, I'm just not sure if I have what it takes to be a UXer. So I want to break this myth as well. So what do you think employers are looking for when they're hiring UX people? Do you think it's years of UX experience? Do you think it's knowledge of the UX tools and methodologies? Do you want to know what's really important to UX managers? What will really differentiate you from other UX applicants? Well, I actually interviewed UX managers and recruiters, and I've come up with 6 key attributes that I think make up a good UX designer. So the first one is empathetic. We're trying to understand the customer's position. We're trying to put ourselves in their shoes. So if you're a natural person who's naturally empathetic, that's a really good attribute to have as a UX designer, being able to sort of think about other people's perspective. You might be a problem solver. Are you one of these people when things are wrong, you just have to fix it? You just can't leave it like that? Maybe you're in your workplace, there's things that just aren't very efficient. You go, oh, I'm sure there's a better way we can do that. Some of us just do that naturally. So if you're that person, if you're a problem solver, that's a really great attribute for a UX designer. You might be curious. When people are doing interesting things, do you like sort of, watching them? And are you a bit of a voyeur? Do you like observing human behavior and understanding what makes people tick? Again, if you're naturally that kind of person, that's a really good attribute for a UX designer. Collaborative. As UX people, we're working with people. A lot of people are really drawn to the careers in UX because you get to collaborate with other people, especially visual designers. Sometimes freelance visual designers are often working by themselves in a bit of a vacuum, designing in a bubble, and they don't get many opportunities to collaborate with other stakeholders or with actual customers. So if you like collaborating and working with people, it's also a really good attribute to have. Analytical. You don't have to be analytical to be a UX person, but it's really nice to be able to, sometimes we have to crunch data, we got to look at that and make sense of that data. So it's useful if you've got some analytical skills as well. And the last one is about being engaging and persuasive. Persuasive is something you kind of learn, and it's something you kind of get better at when you build your confidence. But being able to engage your stakeholders, engage your customers, a lot of it comes down to understanding the methods, but sometimes it's your natural personality as well if you're an engaging and persuasive person. But don't worry if you're not, because you can sort of learn that a little bit as well. Now, I want you to hear from one UX manager from a Melbourne-based digital agency about what he finds really important when he's looking for UX people to hire.
My name is Amir Ansari, and I'm the Head of User Experience at Transpire. We're a technology consultancy based out of Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. I'm looking for almost like semi-seasoned consultants and practitioners, people who've got the soft skills, not just the human-centered design skills. But over the past probably 2.5 years, I've recruited people who've gone through a career change. Architects, industrial designers, marketing, and so forth. That sort of soft skills or that people communication skills is really important regardless. So they need to be able to stand their ground, need to provide design rationale, need to be able to talk about human-centered design as a practice. I would hire a junior who could communicate and connect with me in a 15-minute interview over a seasoned practitioner who's potentially very quiet and not as able to articulate, because we're professional services, right? And at the end of the day, I need the consultant to be able to ask the questions in the right timings, to be able to read body language, be able to look for gaps in sentences and ask the right questions.
So what about the 3 years experience specified in most UX job descriptions? Well, guess what? Here's an industry secret. There aren't actually enough UX designers with 3 years experience to fill the growing demand. And guess what? If you've been working in another career, you probably have relevant skills and experience that you can carry across. So, do you have what it takes to be a good UX designer? First of all, step 1, you need to ensure you have some of those key attributes. And then if you have that right DNA, you can then consider a career in UX. Let's talk now about what does a typical day look like for a UX designer?
A typical day can look very different depending on what you do, whether you're in the analysis phase, the design phase, or the testing phase. So we're out on the field doing intercepts with customers as they go about their day, interacting with the company, or we might be doing card sorting activities where we're getting users to sort of look at the different ways they would organize and group content. We might be taking the designs that we've got to our stakeholders or customers and running some co-design sessions or co-design workshops. We might be asking a customer, what process did you go through to make a decision about something, and getting them to break down through sort of a customer journey mapping workshop. We might be taking our user data, our user research data, and articulating it as user stories. telling the organization what the needs of the user are in a way that they can then design a product. At the other side of UX design is the actual design. We might be designing a wireframe. We might be just sketching on a piece of paper. We might be going, okay, let's kind of bring this to life and make it look visual and amazing and engaging. We might be testing that. We might be saying, does this work? Which one do you like better? We might do A/B testing or usability testing, where we're giving users tasks and we're sitting next to them and watching how they complete the tasks. We might be doing it through Zoom. I might have one day 6 or 7 usability test sessions lined up with people all over the world, and I'm just, sharing their screen and watching what they do and talking to them about their needs. So much you can do with UX design, and that's why I think this career suits me really well, because I never get bored. It's always something different, and every project you learn a new thing or a new skill, and it just builds on top of it. At the end of the day, you really get a lot of satisfaction from your role, because you're designing something for people, ideally to make the world a better place.
So do you think you have what it takes to be a UX researcher or UX designer? Let me ask you a question. Do you feel a little bit like overwhelmed Olivia, stuck in Groundhog Day, feeling isolated doing your job, poorly paid, and just not doing stuff that's meaningful day to day? Or hopefully I've given you enough information to help you feel more like determined Debbie, ready to sidestep into a well-paying career that's actually going to make a difference in the world. So hopefully we've given you value in this lesson and greater clarity about whether or not a career in UX is right for you. Next lesson, we're going to talk about how to learn UX and also the certifications that are available.